Hello, what's up guys, welcome to another video. My name is Mindglowing and today we're going to create this sci-fi art piece. It's a half planet with a beam going through the core. This tutorial is going to be in cycles and I hope you enjoy it. Please stay tuned and let's go. To start off, let's delete default cube and light. Let's create a UV sphere. And let's change the segments to 64. Now press tab on the keyboard and Alt Z or click this button and let's select half of the sphere, X vertices, and there we have one half of our planet. Let's right click and shade smooth, and just because it's still a little choppy, I'm going to give it a subdivision modifier of 1. You can do that by pressing Ctrl and 1 on the keyboard. Now let's edit this some more. Let's select the edge. This edge by pressing Alt and then clicking on the edge. E to extrude and S to scale. Let's do that again. And F to fill it. Now what we want to do is press Ctrl and plus on the keyboard and we're going to move this up G and Z till it looks something like this, till you're satisfied with the result. I think this looks good. It might need another loop here, and there we go. So let's go into the shading, and what we need is some assets from this website. I've used the Earth day map and Earth clouds as well. So once we have that, we create a new shader, and so we bring in our Earth day map texture. Just drag and drop. Go. Let's connect this to the base color. Let's change to rendered view by pressing Z on the keyboard. Alright. Let's add a light for now so we can actually see something. Change this to 500. Right. Let's move it up a bit. We will change the lights later, using it just to see something happening. Alright, let's add a color map, color ramp, and we're going to change these colors a bit. And I've chosen a kind of purple palette as this really suits my style. Change this to lighter one, like maybe blue purple, something like that. And let's add another one in the middle, just to a bit of purple, and there we go. Looks already much better, less Earth recognizable. Alright, let's add a bump map. And what we want to do as well, because this is not going to be an Eevee tutorial, it's going to be cycles. So let's change that already. Change to GPU compute if you have a graphics card. Let's connect our day map to the height of the bump map, and let's connect that to our principal BASDF. It's way too harsh, so let's change our distance to 0.2 and the strength to 0.3. That looks already much better. And what we want to do is change the inside of the planet. So let's duplicate this light so we can actually see something. And let's add another material, but let's change this one first to planet outside, and then create a new material, and we'll call this planet inside. All we're gonna do is assign some faces to our planet inside, and I'm going to toggle off the subdivision surface to see a bit better. Going to press to click in the middle one and then Control plus to add some faces. And let's go back to all materials and click on assign. Alright, now let's change all material. Let's delete all principal BSF. We don't need that one. We're going to use a translucent and an emission node. Going to mix these two and control the factor. Let's change all emission to 50 with a nice color like this, and we're going to use a noise texture together with a gradient texture. Plug the factor into the vector, sorry, and let's change linear to spherical. Going to add a color ramp as always to control. Plug in the factor into the factor and the color into our factor of our mix shader. Now let's tweak these settings a bit. Change the scale to 22, detail to maximum 15, and the distortion 1.4. It's very hard to see right now, so let's move our color ramp something like that. And as you can see, it's radial but not entirely in the middle, so let's click Control T on the gradient texture and let's tweak our location. Minus 0.5 on the X, minus 0.5 on the Y, and there it is. It's very nicely in the middle, but it's way too bright, so let's control that with a math node. Going to use power. Going to set this at 2.8, and now we have a very nice looking radial texture. Okay, now let's go back into our modeling, and we're going to create some clouds. So Shift D and scale it up very little, and let's press the backslash on the numpad so we're focusing on this object alone. Going to delete these interfaces, so X vertices, faces I meant, sorry. Let's go. All right, so we don't need these materials. We're going to create a new material. Bring in our clouds texture that we downloaded before, and let's control this as well with a color ramp. Color into the factor and the color into the base color. Let's go into our rendered view. Let's click backslash on the keyboard again so we can actually see something. Let's bring in another color ramp. Do Control or Alpha. Going to plug in the color into the factor. Make sure it's the color and not the alpha, and plug in the color into the alpha. Now you can already see that the clouds are emerging. I want to see them a bit more, something like this. And if you think it's given too much shadow, what we can do is scale it a bit down. So we scale it down a bit. That looks alright to me. So let's go back into a modeling view to duplicate this. Let's maybe rename this. I'm going to call this atmosphere. This one was all clouds and all planet. Make sure to organize well, otherwise these are all going to be called spheres and it's going to be very hard to find them later on. So let's go into our atmosphere and let's click backslash on the keyboard again so we can focus on this element and alone. Tap for edit mode and let's select the edge E for extrude, S for scaling, and that's alright. Now let's go into our shading. Move this material, but maybe we're gonna rename it to clouds first. Name that, delete that one, create a new one, go into the rendered view, click backslash on the keyboard again, so we can see our lights and other objects. Let's scale this up a bit, like this. What we need is a transparent BSDF, color ramp, layer weight, plug in the facing into the factor, change this to 0.28. Let's mix these two, plug the color into the factor. Let's change our BSDF. Change the color first. Going to set the same color to our emission. Change this to 20. It's very bright now. Right now, I'm going to change the transmission to 1 as well. Going to control our color ramp. I want a base spline, set another black, something like that, bring it in a bit more till you're satisfied with the result. This looks good to me. Let's change the shader name to atmosphere. And let's create some rings. Let's go back to the modeling view. A curve as here. A circle we need. Curve, circle. Scale it up a bit. Give it some geometry by adding some depth. Something like that. Going to add another ring, so Shift D. You could also use Alt D to make a copy of this one. Since they're gonna be all the same, we could do that. It's smaller, something like this. Let's add another UV sphere. Scale it down up a bit. Right click shade smooth like that. Let's add some more rings. If you feel like this one is too thin, you can go to edit mode and use Alt S. Of course, if you used Alt D instead of Shift D, the other one is going to transform as well. So let's change this one. Let's Shift D, bring it in, make it bigger. Tab and Alt S to scale them. Let's add some other rings as well. I'm going to use Shift D, scale it, bring it up, something like that. I want to make this one a bit thicker. That. Let's Shift D and bring it up, scale it down. One last one. Let down and something like that. Alright. Now we want to move everything around. Let's change this name to core first. Bezier circles are all rings, we don't need to rename them. So let's add an empty sphere so we can control all these elements. Select all the elements. It's going to be easier to select them here. This. Select all empty last. Press Ctrl P to parent to the object. If we select our UV sphere right now and press R for rotate, then Y on the Y-axis, rotate everything very nicely. Now let's change our camera. Press Control Alt and 0 on the numpad. Go to View, Camera to View. Using Control Middle to zoom out. I think a setting like this looks nice. All we need to do is create our beam. But let's go back to here and make sure this is ticked off so we can move without the camera. Now let's add a cylinder. Scale it down. Rotate it. Something like that. And let's select this face and move it into the Z direction. But before we do that, we need to change this to normal instead of global. And now press G and then Z. It's going to be nicely going through the rings. And if you're getting this problem, what we can do is go to our empty, copy or rotation. It's into the wrong direction, but we can just use G and Z. Select this face, Z, scale it down a bit, make sure it's coming from the core, something like that. Right, this looks good. Right click, shade smooth, and let's add a shader for our rings. Let's click the outer ring, for example, to shading. New material, going to rename this to rings. Going to use our principal BSF. This is a very dark purple. Going to set the metallic at 0.5, roughness at 0.3, and let's mix this with an emission node. Let's control the factor with a layer weight and a color ramp. Plug in the facing into the factor. Let's change this to 0.9. Color into the factor. Let's change our emission to 30. Nice purple color. Please see. Let's control our color ramp to a B-spline for that. 2 black points and move this all the way to here. Move all black to the middle. Something like that. We made a little mistake. We need to switch these around where you can actually see what our B-spline is doing. Bringing in or out these highlights. Just play around with these until you're satisfied. Let's link the other rings to the material. So make sure you select them all. Select the last one, the first one that is already shaded as last, and then Control L, link materials. There you have it. Now let's shade our core. Create a new material. I'm gonna call this core. This one is going to be very simple. Let's use darker gray. Set the metallic to 1 and the roughness to 0. That's it for the core. You can see the lines coming in through because it's metallic and that's a 0 roughness. Now let's shade our beam. Create new material. Name this to beam. Going to keep our principal BSDF and set the metallic to 1 and the roughness to 0. And then we get this very nice looking effect. But what we need is some emission. So let's mix this with an emission node. Set this to 50. Change the color to something pinkish or purple. Then add color ramp, layer weight. Going to use the facing again to the factor. Set this to 0.3. Color into the factor. Now let's control it a bit more to bring in a white. Change the black to lighter gray. It's coming in nicely. There's another white here. It's too bright. Change this to darker gray. Tweak these settings until you are satisfied. I think this looks good. Now let's add a background. Create a plane for that. Make it bigger. And what we can, we see the camera's going there. So let's go to the top view. And let's rotate this in the x-axis and then into the z-axis, but we still have a normal one, so let's change this to global. Seems to be nice. So what I used for our background is another texture from the solar system scope, but this time I'm going to use the stars plus Milky Way. So let's bring this in. Let's create a new material first and go to the rendered view. Change this to background and add in our texture. This to base color. As you can see, it's very dark, so let's change, put it into our emission. Change this to 4.5 so we can actually see a bit of the blue coming through. And now all we have to do is change all lights. This one I'm going to set here, but what you can see is that the background is picking up way too much. So let's move it back, scale it up. That's better. There's less influence of the lights. Something like that. And then light and put it in somewhere here. Let's change the color lightly purple. Now there's almost no influence. You want some of the influence, something like that. Now let's create a volume. cube. Scale it up a bit. Let's go to the object properties, go to viewport display, and display this as a wire so we can see through all objects. And let's add a volume to this, so new material. With the principal BSDF, add a volume scatter. Plug it into the volume. Going to decrease all density by 0.01. And what this does is add these nice particles. The light is going to have more influence as well. And all we have to do is render this out. When we have this rendered out, we can go to compositing, click use nodes, add a glare node, and let's add this to the viewer. Control shift to this point, and to get this point we click shift and the right mouse button. This is from the Node Wrangler add-on, and it's way too bright right now, so it's using streaks instead of fog glow. There we go, it looks already much nicer. If you can't see it enough, we can go to view and just click fit. You can add some other nodes as well, like brightness, contrast, and play with this until you're satisfied. I think 2.5 looks nice. That's basically everything. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.